Mr. Fisher, I wanted to kind of dig deep on a very specific Alaska issue, and I know my staff's been working with your team on it, but we are in the midst of a very heartbreaking spike in mental health challenges among our military members. Now, these are the active duty members, but you're probably tracking, particularly the U.S. Army has had just the number of suicides in the last, I think it's 4 to 5 years, has been 45, north of 45 in one region. I mean, this is more than, the numbers are like through the roof. I was literally just on the phone with the Secretary of Defense on this. And the challenges that relate, so there's a lot of attention being brought to the active duty force in Alaska, but we are having, again, some challenges on this issue as it relates to our veterans. You know, we're struggling with our workforce with regard to the VA. We have more vets per capita in the state and the country. But one of the things that I wanted to mention is that our vet centers are very busy places. They can provide both case management and mental health services. There's this comparison that I know that's been made at the VA here in DC about caseloads as high as 100 per provider, and our caseloads are about 50 per provider. And so I think the VA is either saying, hey, you don't have a problem relative, or you guys are more inefficient. But the results is that no new providers are getting placed in our vet centers, and we think we actually need them. The case managers have a lot more to manage than other states. For example, our hub and spoke model of healthcare means that coordinating both intrastate and out-of-state is more common than other states. Travel in Alaska, as you know, is very challenging. We're a continental-wide state, almost 3 times as big as Texas. We have less road miles than Connecticut. Seasonal depression rates are higher due to the winters. So even though we might have smaller per capita caseloads, our workers we see are overwhelmed, and the formula at the VA is saying there should be no new placements in Alaska. So what I wanted to do, that we need to get more efficient before we get more workers. So what I wanted to do, I know that's a big windup, but I wanted to work with you and your team on how the VA formula can be reevaluated to better reflect some of the realities on the ground. As you guys know, one size doesn't fit all. And would you commit to working with me in my office on these issues? And I know we've been talking to your team about it.
Yeah, we will commit to that. We'll do a deep dive into service provision there to see where our opportunities are.
Good. Let me turn to another. The Cleveland-Dole Act, which I voted for, required the VA to hire 50 full-time employees for vet centers to expand mental health services. The bill required the VA to select 50 different locations with unique geography. Were any added to the vet centers in Alaska, do you know, under that? Or are you guys still implementing that?
None of the positions were identified for Alaska, but we have other opportunities to increase our workforce, and I think that goes back to the deep dive that we'll commit to.
Okay, good. And let me ask one final question. Are we seeing any, so I'm very Alaska focused, but of course we're here in the U.S. Senate, so I care about all veterans. Are we seeing any kind of positive signs on veteran mental health or suicide issues nationally, or are the trends still trending in a direction that is continuing to be alarming? And it's an issue that, of course, this committee cares a lot about. But what are the trend lines, and is there anything in terms of a silver lining that we're seeing with regard to veteran issues, particularly veteran suicide?
Well, I'm going to speak to vet centers specific, and I'm going to go to our customer feedback, our trust scores.
Yeah.
And that is, we find that vet centers trust us to improve their quality of life. And that means to me that we need to make sure we're providing the right services that meet the needs in those local communities, that keep those veterans and service members engaged in services, and then to be able to feel comfortable enough to voice that if they're having a bad day, to say that out loud.
Okay, good. So, but the national trends, that's kind of a little bit beyond the mission of the vet centers that you're focused on, in terms of what you can tell this committee?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else on the panel? Do you guys have a view on that?
So in terms of oversight, the reason we're so involved in overseeing these vet centers is because of that we
Yeah.
are not making, that VHA is not making the gains that it would like to in reducing veteran suicide and the risk for veteran suicide. I'll add that our oversight teams are actually in Alaska this week, so they will be looking at vet centers in your state this
Look,
week.
when the vet centers are there, I agree with Mr. Fisher, the response, it's been great, right? They're really great facilities, and so I think it's a wonderful program, innovative, and maybe it's too early to tell the impact, but I would hope that we're going to start to see some kind of positive impact, particularly on this issue that all of us really care about, which is veteran suicide and these rates that are heartbreaking, and no one wants to see those rates continue. But you think it's too early to tell, Doctor?
Is your question, is it too early to tell the impact of vet centers
Yes.
on the suicide rate?
Yes.
Well, I can tell you, because we're finding consistent shortcomings in the coordination and the steps needed to ensure a veteran's safety in a vet center when they are deemed high risk, I think until we see those improvements at the local vet centers, it's hard to say what type of impact they're having.
Okay.
But we would be happy to reach out to you when we have our conclusions from the sites we visit in Alaska to
That
give you
would be
some
great.
local insight into
Good.
what we're finding.
Great. We appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.